Quorum being present, we'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for January 18th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented. It's been made by Mr. Haggerty, seconded by Mrs. Barnacle. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the chair will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions for the record? Motion carries unanimously. That will bring us to our financial report.
I think Steve's going to review current year.
Okay, yeah. Yep. Steve will do a review of current year, and then we'll transition to the budget committee's presentation.
Great. As we look at this financial report right as it stands right now, we are progressing as we should at about 50% of the year, 50% being spent. As we move into the second half of the year, there are some decent balances in our revolving account, so they will do well to help us close out the year. One account of issue is the long-term subs at the high school. As you know, we've had quite a bit of long-term subs, so we're watching that line very closely. And then as we watch school choice and out-of-district tuitions, they look to be slightly higher than we had expected. That will be addressed in next year's budget. However, those things are areas where we do our best guess going forward, and we'll have the reserve to go ahead and handle for this year. So other than that, we're looking pretty good.
Any questions for Steve? All right, seeing none, we will move to the budget subcommittee report for FY23. Mrs. Noyes-Miller.
Okay, we met a couple weeks ago, and we were presented with the budget for the 22-23 year. A lot of it is the same as previous years. We've had a few increases, so it was presented with a 4.4% increase. Hopefully everybody's got a chance to look at your packet. The drivers of the budget for the increases is out-of-district tuitions is up 14%, and that's mostly the virtual high school. Second year.
Steve just sort of cubed that up.
Right.
The shortage that we're having this year, the school choice and out-of-district tuitions is high this year, so we're gonna be short, so we budgeted that.
Budgeted for next year also.
Yep.
Our liability insurance is up 33%. As I'm sure you all remember, we had some significant claims across the street. And this is the second year of the increase, and hopefully, after a couple of years, we won't have any claims, so hopefully in the future we can see a change of that. Our health insurance got level funded from the insurance provider this year, but it's up 8%, and that's strictly because of employees that have decided to take out the insurance, so the increased enrollment. So that's what's driving up our cost of that.
But that is good news for, and I'm not sure, I don't think I have those rates when we had the budget subcommittee meeting. We just got, or maybe I had just gotten them. The good news is the Blue Cross Blue Shield rate is gonna be level. So for health insurance, all of our employees will have no increase in health insurance costs on July 1, which is awesome. That would normally, as Sheila said, result in a good thing for us from a budget perspective and let us level the line, but we are a little bit short this year, and we have had increase jumping on over the last year and a half. Our enrollment's gone up.
And I don't know if you all remember, but in 2020, we did cut 3 positions, and we would like to fulfill the last one, which is a 1.0 senior high school teacher, and it's to be determined as to where that's going to be placed. And then we had the ESSER funding due to COVID, and You can see there's various, positions that we were funding with ESSER, and obviously this ESSER thing's gonna go away, and so we were hoping to take some of the positions that we funded with ESSER and put them into the general budget, so when ESSER's one more year, right?
Yeah, we've got, ESSER 3 spans 2 fiscal years.
2 fiscal years,
So
okay.
we've got fiscal '23 and fiscal '24 to use those funds for some of these items. So this is an attempt to try and start weaning off of that cliff that we built. There's some things in the end, and I think we, full disclosure said, there are some things that we truly feel like are just gonna be needed for 2 years, and we would let it go. But there are a number of things here that we had been trying to get in before COVID, such as that junior high nurse assistant. This is now the 3rd time we're trying to get it into the budget where it belongs. The other things, as Sheila was referring to at the beginning, when we were building the 2021, because it was in the spring of 2020 that things looked terribly bleak, and we had 3 retirements at the high school, and we did not replace any of those 3 positions in the 21 budget, because we thought the sky was literally falling in some cases. So for the year we're in, we have funded 2 of those teaching positions with the ESSER funds. What we're looking to do is next year have 1 of them back in the budget, and so we will still have a cliff of 1 teaching position. And then in addition to that, put that 3rd one in, which is what Sheila talked to earlier. So we kind of talked about what those priorities are on that cliff, and could we get them back into the budget, and that's what you see this list being. That teacher, the extra high school custodian, we absolutely want to keep. The practices we put into place on both sides of the street, we don't see going away. We wanna keep going with the cleaning, maintaining, and sanitizing. And then you did have a .75 guidance counselor that this year we said, can we make it 1.0 to add some additional adjustment counseling? I don't think that need is gonna be gone in 2 years, so I'd like to try and permanently get that in. So I have laid out here, we would still have this cliff to be talking about in a year or 2, some of which we will let go of, some of which we might say, I do certainly wanna come back in another year and say, look, can we get that 3rd teacher at the high school back into the budget? But some things we've got some extra classroom assistants that we may not be able to advocate for or get in. But I think, I am optimistic that we can get this. 4.4 is a high number. My first look at the elementary budgets and some of the state funding, I'm optimistic we can get it. If you'll remember, I think you've all been through this once before, maybe Danielle, this might be your first time. Your only obligation tonight is to vote the budget to bring forward to the March public hearing. So we are not yet saying, this is the final budget, here's the revenues, here's the assessments, and it's going off to the towns. We're saying, can we bring this to the March public hearing and make this document be the talking point, these be the items? We usually do get a decent amount of finance, at least a couple of towns always send finance committee representatives, which is good. So we try to get your local officials to come out and hear what's in the budget before we give them the bottom line, because we have that captive audience, but.
We had some at our meeting too.
Exactly, yeah. So I need 1 more month, come March, obviously you all need to see what the assessments would be before you can say, yes, I support this budget and I support the assessments to the towns, is it affordable or not? But I am asking that we consider moving forward with this. My first round read is that I think we can get this, but I need a little more time with the elementary budgets. I do want to, my last bullets down the bottom there are kind of our warnings, what the budget doesn't have at 4.4%. It is not addressing the enormous oil increase next year for heating. Unfortunately, we waited as long as we could to go out to bid. The first time we went out to bid, we didn't even get any bidders, so we knew that wasn't going to end well. But we are, for all intents and purposes, we have a rate this year of 1.65, and French River went out and the rate is 1.9. I'm sorry, 2.9. That is huge. That is not in this budget. What I'm going to suggest, and Budget Subcommittee I think has supported, is that we not increase that line, because I think the year after it'll come down a bit. And the governor's first budget does have rural aid in it. So that it has a rural aid line at all would imply we will continue to get some rural aid money that we don't usually budget and plan to spend, because you don't know. And that the excess oil cost would be something, I think it could be as much as $90,000, but I would rather not increase our budget than we know the year after we'll likely go back down. So that's my suggestion, to just kind of be on our radar for the heating oil. And the other thing that is not built into this budget is we did during negotiations last year with UNA agree to review some stipends, and we agreed to a new model that allows new clubs to come in during the contract period instead of having to wait until the end of every period. So we have not gotten to that process to see what else might wanna come in, what adjustments might need to be done. So that's not reflected in this budget. We'll just have to optimistically hope that any other things that might change within it, we can absorb whatever you all might agree to.
We have to remember that the figure we bring to the public hearing, we cannot go up, but we can always go down.
Yep.
So, I would like to make a motion, are we open for discussion, to bring forth to the public hearing a budget of $26,341,533, total operating budget 4.4% increase.
It's a recommendation of the Budget Subcommittee. It does not require a second. We'll bring it to the floor for discussion.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, does this include the new junior high math curriculum?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great. And also, can you or someone discuss the technology timeline a little bit, particularly in relation to the one-to-one Chromebooks?
Yeah, increase, and thank you, actually, I forgot to say, if we can wean off of what we have used the ESSER grant money for this year and get some of those salaries into the budget, we will have additional ESSER grant monies next year that we can put directly towards more technology.
Okay.
So we should be able to get a decent infusion of, and again, you refer to one-to-one, no one here has ever committed that is the end goal, the one-to-one.
Okay.
The goal is to have adequate devices so that teachers can provide anytime they want in the classroom the devices to have those lesson plans. But
I thought it said move toward one-to-one and then.
toward, exactly, toward.
Okay.
So definitely increasing, yes, lowering the ratio. We absolutely need, high school needs far more Chromebooks. We put a lot here in the junior high in the last year or two. But the ESSER funds is the ideal thing. There's a little bit in your capital plan.
Right.
But if we can get off of some of the ESSER funds for staff, we can spend the next 2 years really ramping up on technology. It's devices, we need Chromebooks, and we need to replace a good number of smart boards.
Yeah.
So that again, if we can get this budget passed, there's a lot of money sitting there that we could use for technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing it up, because
you.
I should have mentioned it when we were trying to get off that cliff.
Further discussion? Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Given the increase in the out-of-district tuitions, can we get a report at some point of where students are electing to go, if not here, whether it's?
Sure, I'll get it, next month. It is the I wouldn't say far majority, I would say 50 to 60% of the quote school choice are the virtual academies. So I'll get you those numbers.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Velazquez?
I was wondering if you guys could speak to not including any of the requested money for we received the email about hockey and wrestling, and just curious about like the thought process and why that wasn't included. I know in the past I've heard that it's because we're worried about other things kind of coming up. But from what I understand, the co-op program is different, and it's an actual official agreement between Tantasqua and specific schools. So it's not like somebody could come in and say, my kid does equestrian here, so I want you to fund me, which is what I understood our reasoning was in the past for not entertaining, just giving subsidizing this in some way. I think $1,200 per kid is extremely expensive, and I know it's their choice, but, you know, we do make a big deal about covering, you know, none of our kids pay, and these are our kids, and I do think we should at the very least figure out a cost per head of what sports cost, you know, here, and then somehow, you know, give them a little something towards this $1,200, because it is a program that I believe, you know, it's an official agreement, I think, between Tantasqua and whatever school.
There's an agreement to cover legally, from an insurance perspective, the student's ability to participate. And that is the only formal component of the agreement that was arrived at a number of years ago. And when that vote was taken, it was taken with the condition that there would be no financial commitment associated with that legal agreement, period. It was considered to be at the time, and still is, a co-op program. It's the town of Auburn's team that we are permitting, effectively through a waiver, the right for our students to be able to participate and play on the Auburn team, but it's not a Tantasqua-sponsored sport. We've had other co-ops before, we've not funded those either. The timing of that letter came in, I think, the evening before the budget subcommittee met. That figure was not at all part of the budget discussion. There was a proposal that was a much smaller figure as a part of the budget discussion. And I think it was the perspective of the budget subcommittee that this would be a programmatic shift. It would be a shift significantly from the original vote that was taken and has been the policy of the district now for almost a decade. And that if in fact that there was to be a shift from that, it should not happen via a budget line item, but a larger conversation that would probably require the athletic director to put in place a plan that we could react to and think about how we might want to consider something like that going forward. So I think that was our position at the budget subcommittee
We had
meeting.
quite a long discussion about it.
We did.
Yeah.
And it's come up before, so it came up 3 years ago.
Right.
And again, my understanding of the situation currently is that the town of Auburn is spending significantly less money than what they're charging the Tantasqua students to participate. And that seems to me unfortunate. And I think there's definitely leverage, given the number of our kids that are playing, for us to have a conversation with, maybe through the athletic director, the town of Auburn, about the opportunity to look at how we defray the cost associated with what the Tantasqua students and families are paying versus what Auburn students and families are paying. From our perspective, that hadn't happened yet and probably should. There was no programmatic proposal before us to consider the inclusion of hockey as a new sport. Our policy has been we do not fund co-ops because they're considered effectively non-sponsored school activities. When we approved the waiver, it was only conditionally to allow participation with no funding. So that's the point of view of the budget subcommittee.
Okay.
And has been at this committee now for almost 10 years. Mr. Haggerty?
Yeah, I'd like to just speak to that issue. First, for the sake of transparency, I want people to understand that I have a grandson who plays on that co-op team. I want to speak to the issue from a couple of perspectives. Number one, I was the superintendent of schools when we started a co-op team with Tantasqua. We have wanted our kids at the school district or our superintendent to participate in a football program, which we could not afford. And we spoke with Tantasqua, and they were very generous and allowed our kids to participate. I would beg to differ slightly with Michael in terms of our interpretation of a co-op team. A co-op team, and again, from my experience with the MIAA, is considered a regular team. It's not a hybrid, strange model. If you participate on a cooperative team, you are on a sport team. So and I understand the issue of budget constraints, but as Michael said earlier, I have some real genuine concerns about the fact that we entered into this agreement with Auburn to allow our kids to have the opportunity. And what it's turned into, apparently, from the description that I've heard, is that they are funding their hockey program basically at the expense of our kids. And I think that that is inappropriate, and I question the ethics of it. If anything, I would like to see come out of this, and I would be willing to make a motion if it were appropriate, Mr. Chairman, is that we request the high school principal and the athletic director to initiate conversation with Auburn.
I'm gonna hold you, because we have a motion on the
Okay.
floor that's budget
Okay,
in
fine.
nature, and so that would be out of order at the present
All
moment,
right.
but I will let you make that motion
Thank
when
you.
the budget's been
I
voted.
appreciate that.
And again, happy to share the minutes from the vote that was taken now twice over the last 10 years, but the committee was clear that they were not supportive in both instances of funding. That's not to say things can't change, but there's a vehicle to pursue that, and the budget subcommittee felt very strongly it wasn't the budget subcommittee's jurisdiction to dictate what the new policy of the district would be vis-a-vis a budget line item. So at this time, we have a motion on the floor, which is approval of the recommended budget. As you heard from Mrs. Noyes Miller, is there any further discussion on the budget? All right, all those in favor of the motion to advance the recommendation to the public hearing will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions for the record? Motion carries unanimously.
Two more quick things. You have got in your packet also the 4-page capital plan. It has now been reviewed by Building and Physical Plant Subcommittee. It's been reviewed by Budget Subcommittee. We're not asking for a vote tonight. If anyone has any questions on it, we're happy to take them. That will be part of your votes in March. But the recommendation will be, again, what it's been for a number of years, to fund it all from school choice. So that's in there mostly as FYI, unless you have questions. And then finally, boy, I cannot remember, I will have to look. Our public hearing will be the night of the March meeting. I think what we did last year was start off with the public hearing we have for a number of years, so
Yeah.
the public hearing will be at 6 o'clock. We may post the regular meeting for something closer to 6:45 than 7 to be able to go right into it, but wanted to make sure everyone was aware and okay with that as a plan. And Danielle, I think the only one that probably hasn't been here, we usually start the public hearing across the hall in the cafeteria to do a presentation, and then we'll come here for the regular meeting.
Mr. Haggerty, did you wish to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd go back to what I was starting with. I'd like to suggest that, or move that we request the high school principal and the athletic director to engage in conversation with Auburn to see if there cannot be some change with respect to the charge, the extent of charges, and that they also, if Auburn is not receptive to that, that they be authorized to investigate alternative cooperative alliances with another school district.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Haggerty, and who seconded it? Mrs. Belezza. Is there any further discussion on that? Is there any objection? By unanimous consent, so approved. All right, that will take us to our staff reports.
I'll go first.
Mr. Sturgis, yeah, I'm not going to Mr. Woodruff first. He's set the table.
So we'll, I'll touch on just things that are in the report first, just that we did have our Project 351 students. They've been identified far beyond before this, but, so I'm glad I finally got them in here. 5 awesome kids, as you would expect. Unfortunately for them, once again, the launch day that they do in Boston in January was canceled again due to COVID. Was actually, they were trying to do it, and then as of the Christmas break or the vacation, Omicron was destroying the state, so they had to cancel that. It actually worked out for 2 of our students, who obviously I won't identify, because they were requiring students who attend to have been vaccinated. So because it went virtual, although that's not as good of an experience, those 2 students got to attend because it didn't matter if they were vaccinated or not when they were at home. So I will keep you in the loop as we get to the spring when they usually do their project, which is most likely going to be a clothing drive. but I will keep you guys informed along the way. We did kick off or started our COVID testing kit distribution in line with the district plan, so we've gone through 2 cycles of staff distribution, 1 for students. This is the second round for students, so far so good with students who families have signed up voluntarily to take home these test kits that were provided. Our winter basketball season just wrapped up. Probably some of them were still here when you guys pulled in. We had a pretty good year for both boys and girls, so they both won tonight versus Dudley Middle, which ended the boys season at 10-3 and girls at 12-1, only losing to Charlton Middle last Friday night, all good there. Some things in the building. We had a Harbor episode character building a school-wide lesson last Friday, which is the intent is to do those for the next 6 months, or 6 lessons over the next 5 months at the end of the year, just to kind of bring awareness to kind of cultural awareness and topics of inclusion to our kids. The focus of this one was on equity and equality versus equity. And then the kids watch a short clip on a video through a program we use, and then they have discussions in their advisory blocks. We covered a couple of topics along just kind of just inclusion, basically basic inclusion of welcoming kids of all religions, race, LGBTQT community students, and basically a number of activities kind of transpired throughout the building. 7th graders built a chain of an activity where they all wrote something they can do to be more inclusive in our building, and they built a chain together so they can put all the ideas together. If they we're all linked together as one Tantasqua unit here. Then student council has been extremely active, although our Valentine's Day, they don't call it Valentine's Day formal, but our formal was canceled, or I should say postponed, because we didn't want to be indoors and waste the dance on masked up, and when we can get to the spring and the outdoor one, the kids love, to be honest with you, in the fall, so we're looking forward to waiting for better weather. But they've been running our school store, which is new. We've never had that open during the school day, so our school store is open for students during lunches. We're currently in a spirit week, which we do from time to time. For some reason, we always pick the crazy weeks before vacations, and teachers love that. But we have just a bunch of different dress-up days with activities that student council kids are running at lunchtime, as well as Friday, we are doing a Black History Month kind of activity where you can see when you leave here, there's a bulletin board of famous Black historical leaders with quotes, and the kids are going to be encouraged to write down. It's on an I Have a Dream board. Kids are going to be encouraged to write down a dream they have and post it on the board. And every post that we count is going to be a $1 donation to the NAACP in the end. And then Ski Club is just wrapping up. They have one more week next week, which has been again, all of our activities, including athletics, has been our highest attended year. I mean, we've maxed out as many seats. Every one that we had, we filled up this year. So that's pretty much what we got going on right now, heading into February break. Anyone have any apprehensions?
Sturgis? Ms. Joseph.
All right, at the high school, we did a spotlight on physical education department this month. And we have 3 new courses this year. We changed from our idea of PE 9-10 and PE 11-12 to be more specific toward their interests. And with the 3 new courses that we have are Fitness for Life, Mind, Body, and Wellness, and Team Sports. And with that, our teachers have engaged in multiple professional development opportunities to look at new and interesting ways and things that they can bring to their students, whether it's Zumba, yoga. We have a certified lifeguard on our PE staff. They've also brought in 2 Apple TVs to add in resources and supplements to their workouts. So we have lots of fun things happening there. We have unveiled our program of studies, and we have had presentations to both our students and begun those presentations to parents as well. Our counseling staff is now over here at the junior high, getting ready to roll that out to the 8th graders to look at their schedule and what their course offerings are. And over at the high school, they are beginning to meet with our students, particularly our seniors, is where they're our current grade 11 future seniors, to look at what they have and their course of study to get their graduation requirements in. So that's been interesting and fun as we've added we've changed a couple courses and looking at the curriculum there. No budgetary changes, so don't worry there.
Our Diversity Club and ADL have come together to commemorate Black History Month, and we have posters throughout the building with lots of different quotes and inspirational stories of members of Black history. Our National Honor Society had 3 members go to as schools match wits at Westfield State in January, where they went up against Wacona High School. The results of that I cannot tell you, but it will air on April 2nd on NEPM TV. We have a lot going on with regard to our music department. Our students did audition for the Mass Music Educators Association, and we have students that placed in both choral and band, which I may have mentioned the last time, and they are scheduled to play at Symphony Hall in March in person. So they're excited to be able to do that. Our show choir is underway. We have now had 2 different competitions, one of which was just an exhibition for us, which was this past weekend. But at our first competition, where we did compete at Shepherd Hill, we placed 3rd, earned a silver medal, and also had best show design. This past weekend, we hosted a show choir competition. It was a good 13, 14-hour day for our show choir students and their families, I have to say. To our show choir families who are out there, and that includes parents, guardians, grandparents, aunts, uncles, former show choir members. How that group comes together to sponsor this and put this together is simply amazing, and the number of hours that they put forth is commendable. We had a wonderful day, lots of different schools there having fun, and in the end we got to see our students perform, though they weren't judged because we're hosting. They really did bring it. It was a great show. If you get the chance to go out and see them anywhere, please do, because they truly were wonderful, and they put all their heart into it. In athletics, we are approaching playoff season, and our boys and girls basketball team are hoping for a playoff seat. They both have tournaments coming up over February break. We are hosting one of the tournament games for the boys on the first Sunday of the tournament. The girls will play away. We also have members of our swim and our indoor track that have qualified for the state competitions. So that's happening now currently for those 2 teams as well. We recently hosted we had senior nights for everybody, and we were thankful that even though for indoor track we weren't able to have spectators throughout because of the size of the field competition and only 2 indoor tracks in Central Mass, Northbridge and Tantasqua, and all of those schools having indoor track despite the fact they don't have one. We were able to get senior parents in for the last meet of the season, which was nice for them to be able to be there. We also welcomed fans back in mid-January after a bit of a 3-week hiatus, so we are happy to have them back. Student Council has been able to have some student nights that they've started at those games, and we hosted a senior doubleheader last week with boys and girls varsity versus Quabog, which was nice. And the principal from Quabog and I sat there together and talked shop and watched our kids, which was a great way to bring our 2 communities who are so close together. We also had a memorial game on Friday of last week. We had our freshman, JV, and varsity boys basketball program play. It was senior night for our senior boys and also for our senior cheerleaders. But we also invited Coach Vince Sinoscalchi's family to join us on Friday, where we commemorated the season and the game in his honor and his memory. We gave them a plaque. We also posted a plaque outside our field house in his honor as well. And that was a nice and touching event for them. We also had our freshman awards assembly. So as part of our freshman transitionary program, one of the things that we have implemented throughout the years is a freshman awards assembly. It's honoring students in different ways, not just about their grades, but in other ways in which they shine, whether it's being helpful, displaying sportsmanship, being a good citizen, lots of different things that they do within the classroom and within the building. And we normally have one big assembly together, but we did break it up this year with a tech division assembly and an academic division assembly, just because of the nature of spacing students within the building. We gave prizes and nice refrigerator certificates to everybody who earned those honors, and it was a nice day. We also celebrated our Student of the Quarter with an ice cream sundae celebration at the close of the day for those students as well who earned that honor. We have some fundraisers taking place, or that did take place. Our freshman class did a Valentine's Day fundraiser with balloons. Our sophomore class is kicking off March Madness, where they have donations from the community that they are raffling off, gift certificates and some items. And our NHS members will be doing a dough raiser in March. So hopefully, I think I got it. And tonight, though I will introduce later, we have Anna Roberts here in lieu of Lorelei, so there you go.
Questions for Ms. Joseph? Mr. Haggerty?
No, I just want to sort of reinforce what Principal Joseph said about the show choir. I went sort of on the spur of the moment the other night, and it was really impressive. First of all, to see the groups, large groups, and see something outside of the Tantasqua region. I think, if my recollection is correct, Waltham, is it Waltham that won?
Yes.
Yeah, they were an amazing group. And I think the thing that was impressive too was that there were even a group from Arizona who traveled all the way to Tantasqua to compete. And that says something about our school programs.
We're just laying the groundwork for me to do a field trip next year.
I thought that was
Go
Paris.
visit my alma mater.
Did they do show choir in Paris? Or?
It's a great community.
Mr. Wood?
I think the time's a lot, no.
You can be brief.
Yes, I could be. First two things are looking at having some things declared obsolete. The first comes from the cafeteria, and that is the mixer. The guards are broken. If you really can't find replacement pieces, and they've actually bought one already to replace it, so we're looking for that to be declared obsolete.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Been moved by Mrs. Noyes-Miller, seconded by Mr. Goodwin. All those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. The second thing are the portable bleachers that are in the field house that are original to the new school. They were probably not the best designed to begin with, and over the past 20 years have become less safe. Two have actually been declared by the company who tried to fix them, don't use them at all, and the others are pretty much on their way out. So we're looking to have those declared obsolete and replace them at a later date.
Motion's been made by Mrs. Noyes-Miller, seconded by Mr. Goodwin. All those in favor of the motion will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a couple quick things. In the report, you see the story of Nate Aslan. Nate's a kid who was in electrical, who then moved to manufacturing. He took it upon himself to find this scholarship. His essay was amazing. The teacher, Mr. LaRiviere, said of him, "I wish I had 12 of him in my shop." So this is a kid who has just really found a passion for what he does, and I think the initiative that he took is absolutely amazing and commendable. So I wanted to make sure that that was in this report. The second thing is co-op. Mr. Lamothe does a phenomenal job with co-op. We're seeing a rise, and over the next couple of months you'll see more kids in co-op. One of the kids on the list, McKenna, is actually an 11th grader going on a second semester co-op out of culinary, and we're seeing a trend with students, and I think once we get past next year, past all this COVID stuff, we're going to see kids catching up to where they may have missed stuff in the last year. But the co-op is an incredible opportunity for the kids, and I had to put it in there. We have two kids that are making between $40 and $42 an hour as a high school senior on co-op, which if you do that math out at 40 weeks, that's $88,000 a year. That is just, to me, having been the teacher who sat at $11,000 a year, that is just amazing. And last year, you all voted the new admissions policy, which was the lottery. Mrs. O'Neill thanks you because she didn't have to do 138 interviews of students. But we are sending out acceptance letters for our kids from the junior high. We have 138 kids from the junior high who have applied for tech for next year. Those letters will be going out for acceptance. We have about 25 out-of-district kids. We can accept about 14 of them right now, and therefore we will have a wait list of out-of-district kids. Even though in the policy it says we can't accept late applications, we are going to accept them, but those kids are automatically being put on a wait list because they missed the February 1st deadline. So that model, I thank you for voting in the admissions policy. That has made a huge difference, and the kids are going to get their which will help with scheduling at the junior high, because they're actually going to get their acceptances about a week or a week and a half earlier than what they typically would have gotten them. So thank you for that.
Question for Mr. Wood? Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you.
Brings us to committee reports, student representatives.
So from the high school today, we have, instead of Lorelei Soper, we have Anna Roberts joining us today.
I'm just going to go over some of the things that the student council's been doing with the student body. This past week, we hung up Valentine's cards in one of the hallways at the school. Each staff member and student got their name written on a heart, and we color coordinated them so that they could locate them easily. And at our last student council meeting, we also made Valentines for the Cancer Kids First Club, and they donated those to the Boston Children's Hospital. We got to make about 57 of those cards. Last week, we also did our second annual Super Bowl, which is like a soup fundraiser where kids could donate cans of soup to which NFL team they think would win the Super Bowl, and we donated those to the Wales Food Pantry. They were very thankful for that. And tomorrow we're doing our polar plunge after school, where we will be plunging into some ice cream, and we raised a little over $100. And we are currently planning our Dude Be Nice Spirit Week for March, which is to basically be like anti-bullying and like being supportive to students. And that's all.
Which team got more soup?
The Bengals.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in Allied Health, our seniors have continued with their clinicals at the Quabog Common, and juniors are focusing on patient transfers and complications that happen with such. In carpentry, seniors are working on finishing a basement, while juniors continue to finish up some sheds in Brookfield. CAD has continued to remodel the lobby through 3D design and has played around with a lot of different layouts to make it look a little bit better than just kind of a desk floating out there. Electrical juniors have completed their blueprints for small ranch houses with all the wiring, lighting, outlets, anything that's needed for it. Seniors just installed lights at the State Police Department while also fixing some switches in the gymnasium at the high school that pull down the backboards for us for the basketball hoops. Machine Shop has been experimenting with epoxy and different layering materials for projects, while a lot of their seniors are on co-op, having a lot of fun with that, making a lot of money. Business Tech, the students are totally revamping the school store by stripping it digitally and modeling different layouts, as well as new products and possibly a new name. Students hope to modernize the store and add kind of a student spice to it, make it a little more fun for some of us. Hospitality students have continued in our restaurant, the Cornerstone Cafe, with dealing front of the house with serving staff at dine-in tables, providing to-go service directly to the rooms, and pickup. Students are beginning to look at different aspects of what a cafe will hold, including coffee. The restaurant has had an espresso machine that was previously dormant for a pretty long time, but the students have taken it apart and getting it back together, and it's now running. Our goal is to create some latte art and have a lot of fun with coffee, being, Culinary students have focused on the origin of food and different cultures and being able to recreate that feeling of home. As a part of their final menu project, Olivia Parker and Savannah Bergeron have created an amazing Indian-themed menu that has homemade curry and fresh naan, and is just amazing. It's so good that it was used as last week and this week's menu. So it was very good. A lot of compliments throughout a lot of staff. So coming off of the previous MRE challenge with competition experience, seniors are preparing to take on the MAPSI challenge held at Gillette Stadium. This competition provides amazing opportunities to our culinary students as they can receive a lot of scholarships and to connect with others throughout their industry. Juniors are beginning to take over the seniors' place, becoming more advanced and more accustomed to the restaurant, being able to run a lot of the things, while the seniors are taking on a lot of these competitions, kind of getting out there and getting ready for college. IT continues to take on IT tickets and any issues throughout any of the texts as they arise. Skills USA has continued to connect with students, and since focusing in on the competition that's coming up, we've doubled our meeting size to about 30 to about 60 students. There's a lot of people coming together and being able to connect. At our most recent meeting, a lot of the shops came together and we were able to connect underclassmen with upperclassmen, giving them that experience of taking the test before and some of the other things that they might see. So that's all I have. Thank you guys.
Thank you for the update. Questions for our student rep? Thank you. We've already heard from budget technical. No meeting. Curriculum? No meeting, no report. Bylaw and policy, we've got quite a bit.
Want to do it now or you want to wait?
You ready to roll?
I'm always ready. I'm always ready, Mr. Valenzola.
Go for it.
All right. First, under unfinished business, we have 7 policies before the full committee on second reading. None of them involved any changes at first reading, and based on that, the subcommittee moves that all 7, starting with IHAM-1 through IJOB, be either adopted or rescinded as noted on second reading.
Open the motion to the floor, recommendation of the bylaw and policy subcommittee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the chair will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
Next, moving on to new business, we'll start with the 3 policies that are before you for amendment on first reading. I'll discuss all 3 individually briefly and then move one motion for the 3. Starting with policy HB, negotiations, legal status. I think you'll see that all 3 of these policies really represent one of the driving forces of the subcommittee this year and last year. If any of you have looked at the book of policies that we have, it's extensive. Many of us would say it's bloated, and really includes a lot of language and policies that either don't belong in our policies, they more rightfully belong in our handbook, or include language that is really just editorializing, whether it's on our own editorializing or language that was at one point recommended by MASC. But we really try to look at each policy and take out anything that isn't necessary, that detracts from what the policy really is intended to cover. These 3 policies represent that effort. Looking first at HB, you'll see that the policy addresses employee groups, negotiations between the school committee and employee groups. It cites to the law and then quotes, our original policy quotes only one section of that law. What we found in the past is when we quote the law, we're often forced to then go back and revisit these policies again and again as the law itself changes. So rather than quote the law, it's more appropriate and accurate to simply state our obligations under the law, refer to the law itself. That way we're not having to change the policy every time there might be a tweak to the law. And that's exactly what you see in policy HB. The language we're taking out is simply a restatement of section 2 of the legal chapter that the policy addresses. Moving on to the next, IKAB. This is an example of the editorializing that I just spoke about. That first paragraph, oftentimes MASC's language, if I may, pats school committees on the back needlessly by saying what a wonderful job we do recognizing what we all recognize we try to do. That first sentence is exactly that. So sometimes you'll read through 2 paragraphs of these policies before you get to the meat of the policy. So we're trying to redact that language. That first paragraph came out for that reason, and that's the only change. And finally, policy IKE, promotion and retention of students. Same thing, that first sentence, wonderful language about how wonderful we as a school committee are with our intent. We took that out, but you'll see in the 3rd paragraph an example of kind of the depth of our review. There's a sentence that says, exceptions are in the best educational interest of the students involved in grades 7 through 8. And we recognize that there may be reasons other than educational where a student in 7th or 8th grade may not advance for whatever reason to the next grade. And we at least wanted to give that option to the staff. So that's an example of us trying to get down into the weeds and really make the policy broader and fit the needs of our staff and our students. So that's the 3 policies we have before you on new business. For amended first reading, we'll move that they all be amended as noted on first reading.
We'll bring that recommendation to floor discussion. Objection? By unanimous consent, so approved.
Next, we have 3 policies under new business. We are moving that they be rescinded on first reading. The first, policy IJNDA, video usage in the classrooms. We went through this with a fine-tooth comb, and we realized all of this is in our handbook. Again, an example of a policy containing such detail that it could in fact tie our hands. This language is better placed in the handbook, which, as you know, we approve as a school committee every year. So it's not as if the language does not come under our purview. But we carefully looked at the handbook. All of this is in the handbook for that reason. And we did note that MASC and very few schools have a policy of this nature. We're requesting that it be rescinded. Policy JA, student policy goals, really can be read with policy JA-E, student policies development. Again, a lot of unnecessary language. It's not law-based. It's not language that's recommended by MASC. MASC's draft policies doesn't contain either one of these. Looked at other schools, they don't contain them. The language that is pertinent in these current policies is included in our handbook about how we work together to establish our educational environment, or our environment, period, that's conducive to the very best learning achievements of our students. So for that reason, we want to take it out of policy and leave it where it belongs in our handbooks. So on that, Mr. Chair, I ask that all 3 of these policies, IJNDA, JA, and JA-E, be rescinded on first reading.
Bring that to the floor. Is there any discussion? Any objections? By unanimous consent, so approved.
And that simply leaves us with the 4 policies you'll see there, which were reviewed. They all remain pertinent. They all remain in place. No changes made and no action required by this committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Brings us to negotiations. Mrs. Randall?
We're currently in negotiations with a few different units. As many of you know, this year we have an extremely large caseload of negotiations throughout the district. So we're kind of moving along through spring, and hopefully we'll wrap these all up by the end of the school year.
Thank you, Mrs. Randall. Building and physical plant?
No.
All right, that brings us to communications. Along the same lines of negotiations, just a couple of acknowledgement letters regarding
Yeah.
Unit C and Unit D.
We're a bit late. As you can see, we wanted to make it clear that we did receive requests to start negotiating back in November, but I realized there was no acknowledgement letter sent, so we just sent those 2 out, and we're working with C and D.
There was a budget committee request, which we've already spoken about. That was an email that was circulated to everybody. It's not in your packet. Brings us to the superintendent's report. Mrs. Boyd.
Okay, all kinds of stuff going on. Well, the 2 that are noted here we'll go through, and then I've got a few more to fill you all in. So, while I do not have a piece of paper to share with you, I only have a piece of paper that at first came and said, hey, giving you a heads up, but please keep it to yourself for a couple of days. And those couple of days have passed, and I did receive verbal notification that it was okay to say that the old Sturbridge Academy application for expansion has been denied, will not be approved this year. So I don't have that from an official in writing, but I do have it officially, from a DESI person, so on we go. Nothing to say that they won't try to apply again, but that was good news. And hopefully will help us for a year or two from a budgetary perspective, as well as, quite frankly, we know, we feel in our 5 towns we can best serve our kids here, so we'll keep playing on that. Update, and actually Greg kind of beat me to the punch a little bit on the rapid tests. So we started getting shipments every week, 1 week for staff tests and 1 week for students. The buildings are dealing with distributing them. They are doing their best, in most cases, not even to go through the nurses, because all of this is to finally give the nurses some relief. That process is going along. They did start this week sending us a shipment of both students and staff, that I did receive yesterday. Certainly so that we can distribute to both and cover the vacation next week. Then after that, they're still gonna every 2 weeks send us a shipment for both, and how each building chooses to deploy them as far as what day of the week, whether it's staff all at the same time as students or stick with the every other. We have left that operationally to them, but we have, I would say if I combine the 2 buildings together, we've probably got about 50% of staff asking for tests at this point and 25% of students. So that will continue. From the mask perspective, as you all know, the DESI mandate will be lifted as of February 28th. Governor and the commissioner both announcing. I have gotten feedback from both boards of health that we have regularly since day 1 of the pandemic been hearing from, Ken Lacey and Jamie Terry, who are both completely comfortable with us moving to a mask optional environment starting February 28th. Both nurses have said the same thing, from the 2 buildings actually across the district. So short of any other action by this committee, that's what we would be doing as of February 28th. I would be messaging to all families and staff at the end of the week. The couple of exceptions, obviously, we're still gonna follow COVID protocols when cases, and encourage our families to follow the protocols as far as reacting to COVID cases. The encouragement, and I will continue to give the encouragement, as DPH has said, that if they are unvaccinated, that they're encouraged to still wear masks. Anyone who is immune compromised is encouraged to continue to wear masks. We want to create environments where no one feels shamed either way, whether folks choose to wear masks or don't wear masks. We just go and do our business and educate our children. The one message we'll need to go to remind folks that there is still a federal public transportation masking mandate. So busing will still require masking, so students will need to make sure to and from, if they are coming via buses, that they're masked. And I will make sure that the buses have probably some of those cloth masks that we still have from FEMA last year, a little extra to the bus companies, because I certainly anticipate, at least in the beginning, that some students whose parents says you don't need to wear a mask are so excited that they don't realize they've gotta have it on the bus, so, we'll be messaging that out also. Questions, concerns?
I move that we take no action.
Motion's made to take no action. Ms. Walden. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Randall. So just to clarify, we did act in September We suspended our district-wide masking policies, and we took a vote to follow the guidance of DESI. And so effectively, whether we vote to take no action or we don't take any vote at all, that would be what the district policy would be. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to clarify, when you say we're following CDC policy, I wanna make sure that the students who have been COVID positive and return to school after their 5 days of isolation are wearing a mask for
Yep.
the 5 days following.
Yep.
That has to be tracked through.
That's exactly what I was referring to.
Okay.
6 through 10 requires masking. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Further discussion? All right, we have a motion to take no action. I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion to take no action will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously.
And just a couple of other things that aren't here, just an update that I think most of you hopefully remember a few weeks back, a month or so ago now anyway, we had a tiered focus monitoring review district-wide, which every 3 to 6 years they change the name of it. It is pretty much your special education services. They keep changing the name of the review. We have not, again, received the piece of paper, but we received an email from the reviewers that we have no findings, which is pretty impressive. And Brenda Looney, if any of you don't know her, you should meet that woman. She does fantastic things for this district from special ed area, and she runs a great shop. She ran the audit process, and no findings from a state agency audit is pretty impressive. So I appreciate her and all of the building principals and the staff that was involved in both the paper and on site. They were here on site for 2 days. And finally, I did kick off the high school principal search process. We have put up a posting on School Spring as well as our website. The hope is that the search, interview, screening, the whole process goes through March into early April. My hope is that by early April, I can make an appointment and an announcement that should be a decent time of the year to make whatever plans need to be made. I hope I did a decent job of getting a pretty diverse committee. Mrs. Barassa and Mr. Valenzola will co-chair the search. We've got teacher representatives, we've got support staff representatives, we've got your parent council representatives, we've got extracurricular representatives. So the committee is 9, and tried to touch on everything, and we'll keep you posted as we go. But we do have, this is one search. I've also got one elementary school, Wales, that has a principal search that will be running simultaneously.
Mrs. Barnacle?
I just have one question. Has there ever been any thought given to the idea of having students as a part of search committees?
Yeah, and Jody and I have been talking about how to get some student involvement, if not on the committee as voters, at least engaged in providing some feedback through the process.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Feedback.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would second that.
Yep. And I've got my first superintendent advisory meeting right after February vacation with the group that Erin had started working with.
Yeah, good.
So my thoughts too is I might work with them.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Good, good.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyd. All right, we have covered unfinished and new business. That brings us to public access. Is there anybody that wishes to address the committee?
Okay, I'll go.
Just state your name, please.
Sure, my
and,
name is Karen Rich. I have a 10th grade boy who plays on the Auburn hockey team, so you can imagine where I'm gonna go with this. Listening to this meeting has been very helpful to me to understand the lack of financial support that the families get towards the program, and I understand it, I really, really do. I don't think that any of the families would be looking for full funding of the program. I think even as mentioned previously, a small credit towards the cost, equal to what we would pay for a normal, student athlete here at Tantasqua would be appropriate. But more importantly, as I've been sitting here, just thinking about the students themselves, the athletes that play the sport, it's a big sport. It's a sport that's played by a lot of kids in this state. And the kids on the Auburn program are having a great time. And some of them are very good players. We're bringing a lot of good talent to Auburn. So I'm just thinking of this more emotionally. Can we give our kids a little support? They are practicing 5 days a week. They're playing hockey 6 days a week. And I just think it would be nice for them to feel a little of the support that the other teams receive. Now, most of these kids don't even understand the financial, side of it. But again, just a little support. I think the families would appreciate any small amount that could be considered. But for me personally, I would just love to see the program get a little more advertisement within the school. So that's my mom, the mom and me coming out, trying to support my child, who puts a lot of effort into playing a sport that he loves for our school. He's wearing blue, but he loves it. So I just wanted to throw that out there to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Anybody else who wishes to address the committee? All right, thank you very much. Brings us to open forum, an opportunity for committee members. Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Today is National SRO Appreciation Day. I just want to note and recognize all of the district's SROs, but in particular Officer Nick Martirosian, who I understand is doing a great job, as reported to me from some staff, some students, some parents, and I think it's turned out, especially in this year with the challenges that we're facing coming back. It's a challenging job, and I think Nick is doing a fantastic one.
We will send them a letter from the committee. Anybody else wish to participate in open forum? At this time, we will be convening into executive session. I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. The matter relates to the Tantasqua Junior High Unit A grievance that the committee received.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Haggerty,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Goodwin. It requires a roll call vote. Valenzola, yes.
Ms. Miller, yes.
Goodwin, yes. Haggerty, yes.
Randall, yes. Alden, yes. Cunningham, yes.
Custodes, yes. Velez, yes.
Fitzgerald, yes.
Limer O'Keen, yes.
Leo, yes. Barnacle, yes.
Done, yes.
All right, the committee will adjourn directly from executive session.